Todd Fletcher does it again, wins the Kentucky Derby back and wins the Belmont. And with Tappert winning, and then Patch coming in third, he had the bookends on the Belmont. Roger Weiland, Chris and Rodger here at Shaker Ridge Country Club on this beautiful Monday, and joined by our racing analyst for us this summer on 104.5 Team ESPN Radio and back on WNYT sooner than later with the Saratoga racing season about to begin in a month and change from now is our good friend John Pricci. Good morning, Preach.
Good morning, Roger and Chris. Yes, the countdown has begun, right, guys?
No doubt about it. Let's start with the performance in the Belmont. Surprised at all that Fletcher ran first and third?
Well, considering we were on air Friday telling people it was the best value to bet on in the race, no, we were not surprised, and in fact, we were very pleased by the result. Very formful result. We talk about pedigree in this business all the time. Nowhere is it more important than in the Belmont, Raj. I mean, when they came into the stretch on Saturday, it looked like Irish War Cry was about to go on his way all the way. But yet in that last 16th of a mile, he shortened stride just a tad. But it was more the fact that Tappert went into overgear and overtook him in the shadow of the wire. I mean, it went from a horse race, and I almost couldn't believe that the winning margin was 2 lengths. And you mentioned Patch, same kind of thing. I mean, it looked like Gormley, who might have loomed a bit of a threat at the top of the stretch to win the race as he was on the move, stayed one pace through the lane, and unfortunately, that one pace, Patch, who was stoutly bred for the race, and the reason why Todd pointed him that way, just wound him down inside the final 16th of a mile. So pedigree matters, and you opened up with Todd, and his record, from the Derby to the Belmont, when he skips the Preakness, when he gives his horses the 5 weeks, which is his program with virtually all of his horses anyway. I mean, they all run optimally, with 5 and 6 week breaks. Well, he ran 13 horses on Derby weekend, and that includes the filly Rags to Riches, who won the Belmont, and she had won the Kentucky Oaks that previous year. Well, 13 3-year-olds that he ran during Derby weekend, who skipped the Preakness, and who came back in the Belmont. 13 horses, 3 wins, 4 seconds. Pretty hard to get better than that, Raj.
Hey, John, everybody will want to know which of the 3 Triple Crown winners will we see in Saratoga. I would imagine there's a pretty good bet that we'll see all 3 of them, given that it's 2 Todd Fletcher horses and 1 Chad Brown horse. What are you most looking forward to? The countdown is on to Toga.
Right. Let's not give the Haskell short shrift. And sometimes, being from New York, we kind of say, well, the Haskell is like $1 million prep for the Travers. And Irish War Cry, who was second Saturday, as everyone knows, is still being pointed to the Haskell. And a horse by the name of West Coast, who was one of Bob Baffer's 4 stakes winners on Saturday, he likely is going to the Haskell too, and then he can come back to Saratoga, because he did mention, he did use the word Saratoga on the telecast. Now, certainly, no always dreaming is going to point that way, because the guys that own him, the principal owners, they're from New York, and they proved something at 1.25 miles. They won the Derby. Now they're going to point for the Midsummer Derby. And I was very pleased to hear, or at least to read, that John Sheriff, the trainer of Gormley, said that he ran well. He was proud of his horse, and he ran well enough to consider, staying with the top horses. And Saratoga is definitely a possibility. So Irish War Cry and West Coast, if they run in the Haskell, if they run well, if they come out of the race well, those 2, plus Always Dreaming, cloud computing and Gormley, well, you got 5 pretty good horses right there, and actually Todd's got a bunch more that he could run in that race. So it's going to be interesting.
Hey, John, one more from me, and that is Tim Wilkin wrote a column over the weekend, and he spoke with Bob Baffert, and I think Tim felt, and a lot of us did, that Arrowgate would be kind of out of the question of coming to Saratoga, but I did tell Tim Wilkin that is not a done deal yet, and that Saratoga is still on the map, and mentioned the running of the Whitney Stakes on August the 5th as a possibility. Where would you stand on Baffert and a possible decision to bring Arrowgate back to Saratoga?
Well, I think that, he's not shy when it comes to shipping his horses, and there is no trainer in the history of the game who's been more successful leaving California to ship east anywhere or to the Midwest, east of California in any event, and getting the money. His record with shippers, the percentage is over 30%. However, I think he gave Tim a political answer there. I don't see him leaving California. The Breeders' Cup is at Del Mar. There's a race called the Pacific Classic. That's a 1.25 miles, just as the Breeders' Cup Classic is. And there's a stake at the beginning of the Del Mar meet called the San Diego. I think it's a grade 2. They'll probably throw some more money at it to keep that horse home. I doubt very much that we'll see him, but he could if he wanted to, knowing that Arrowgate. Well, I guess he loves all racetracks, including the one in Dubai, and we know what he did in the Travers last year. So he loves this track. He got over his little bit of a Saratoga jinx, as it were, Baffert, that is. So he could use the Whitney as a prep for the Pacific Classic. That would be, the spacing would probably be maybe a little close, maybe 4 weeks. But if it's 5 weeks, that could be a real possibility. I just don't know where the Pacific Classic falls on their calendar. But I have to think that at this point, he's staying home. He's going to run 3 times at Del Mar. He'll prep for the Pacific Classic. He said, or he'll train up to the Pacific Classic, because this horse runs with a lot of space between races. He proved that last year. He went from the Travers to the Breeders' Cup Classic without a race in between, and beat a Kentucky Derby champion and Horse of the Year. So he doesn't really need to ship to Saratoga, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I would think that would make the most sense for Arrowgate. But hey, if Baffert has a little change in game plan and wants to come, we'll welcome Arrowgate with open arms on Whitney Day. That is for sure. John, always a pleasure. Thanks for a few minutes on the wrap from the Triple Crown, and really now all that is left is the true countdown to the start of the Saratoga racing season.
Yeah, well, they got Nara does have that big weekend on July 4th. Maybe we'll talk about that as a possible interlude, and then it'll make it only 3 weeks from there to Saratoga. But looking forward to the trip, Raj, as you know.
No question. Thank you, John. John will be with us throughout the entire Saratoga meet outside of the dark day on Tuesday. We'll have John on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and Chris and I will be live from the racetrack every Friday of the Saratoga meet with Big Board Sports.